The A in LISSA stands for advice. So is it
Yes.
only advising, or are there things, because we have the technologies which can act also if needed?
Definitely, the Indian government is actually at the forefront to actually also push for sustainability goals, right? We have actually adopted innovative technologies. We were the first one to actually push for sugarcane recycling. And when we push for new devices, we already actually take it into consideration how we can actually already reduce the carbon footprint.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices. As is the promise, we'll talk about things that you really don't know about or how the world is changing. And with AI, it's literally every week something new is happening, which we did not know was going to happen the week before. So I have a very interesting topic for us this time, and this is how AI is helping with sustainability with large enterprises. And to talk about that is Fan Ho, Executive Director and General Manager, Asia Pacific Solutions at Lenovo and Services Group. So, Fan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great opportunity to actually join today's sharing session. Really eager to actually wait for the questions from Nandagopal. So therefore, we can actually get into a little bit more details.
People don't usually associate AI as something that can help with sustainability. And this is something that I was also surprised by, that this is actually a big thing and a lot of people are working on it. And Lenovo even has a product that helps companies figure this out. So could you explain the concept of LISA and how AI is helping with sustainability?
Sure. Before I get into LISSA, maybe I can actually take a little bit of step back, right, as on the journey that we have actually embarked on and how we're actually looking at the whole question around sustainability. So I think the best place to actually really get started is definitely the United Nations 17 Sustainability Development Goals. And I actually have done a little bit of collections of the 17 and actually really zoom into the field that we feel we can actually be contributing to. First and foremost, goal 8, decent work and economic growth. Goal 9, industry, innovation in infrastructure. Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. And last but not least, goal 13, the climate actions. And actually, LISSA is really on the notion about responsible consumption and production. And I'll get into a little bit of detail later on, but in the Lenovo journey of sustainability, I would be actually very proud to actually highlight that we've been actually looking into all these relevant goals to actually really help the companies to actually look at their sustainability journey, and then actually also deploying the different technology and solutions that Lenovo can actually bring to bear. Arguably, we are actually one of the largest IT company, and we have a really wide spread of portfolio that is really AI enabled, AI ready, and actually even AI optimized to actually provide the right kind of devices, infrastructure, and solutions, as well as services to help customer to actually achieve that. Above and beyond LISSA, right, we are actually also supporting, for example, initiative in light out warehouse. So basically, the whole warehouse is actually operating in dark. So therefore, we can actually save some of the energy consumption and actually also contributed to that notion about responsible consumption. We actually also are one of the pioneer and actually still one of the major proponent of actually driving digital twin solutions. So therefore, not everything needs to be actually happening in the physical world, but using a digital image, we can actually derive a much more effective and efficient way of testing the scene, driving some of the analytics, and actually even why that. So therefore, we reduce a lot of the logistic costs, travel costs, and actually also waste in this kind of simulation. And definitely also in the operational front, right? How some of the AI solutions can actually reduce a lot of the repeated work and therefore actually bring the operational efficiency and actually also reduce the waste development. Now, getting into a little bit of LISSA, which is actually our latest solution for the market. And it's actually a very long name, but then we actually codenamed it with the really beautiful AI, the name of LISSA. But it stands for Intelligence Sustainability Solution Advisor, and start off Lenovo, right? Yeah. So that's how LISSA, LISSA, actually stands for. It's actually one of the key new solutions that we're pushing through to our customer to actually allow them to use Lenovo AI-powered sustainable engine, which is actually, I'll say, a combination of more than 100,000 data points to actually help customers and companies to actually make data-driven, sustainable IT buying decisions. Fair to say, right? We have actually done a little bit of a survey on the industry and have, I think this is actually the third year that we are doing our global studies on CIOs. And what we found out is that 83% of the CIO says that sustainability metrics are actually part of their performance evaluation today. However, 38% of the CIO did admit that sustainability typically actually got deprioritized as the result of resources being put towards some of the new technology adoptions and all that. And so therefore, also not surprisingly, 43% of the executive actually cited that they do not know about their IT carbon footprint. However, Lenovo actually do think that this is not really contested agenda. So therefore, we want to actually bring live LISSA to actually really help connect the two. And so with LISSA, we actually compile all this data. And so therefore, first and foremost, inform the CIO as on what kind of carbon footprint, what kind of impact that the solutions are actually bringing to the environment. So therefore, you know, and have a way to actually really track it first and foremost. And then secondly, is actually really the AI-powered engine to actually find the alternative path to actually really allow the companies to consume the IT equipment as well as the service in a different manner. So we will actually get into the selection of, for example, mode of transportation, the selection of the different kinds of devices for the company's right sizing, right usage pattern. We can actually also get into what kind of services that and what kind of delivery model that the company can actually get into, which with the objective of actually lengthening the useful life of the asset, or actually even getting into a refurbished kind of mode to actually really allow the asset to be actually used in a much more sustainable way. So with a combination of all this, right, with the power of AI, we will be able to actually crystallize it and allow our customer to have a much more clear way to actually see what kind of decision that they're making, and therefore what kind of sustainability impact that they can actually drive.
It's actually very fascinating, but I had a couple of questions. So if you have a large organization and LISSA has to advise the large organizations, it needs a lot of data, understanding what kind of assets, what kind of environments the company is working in. So how do you feed in that kind of data? And is that taking a lot of time? If you are maybe handling a company that is spread across the world, has so many units. So how do you manage that? Is it a very complex problem to solve?
Yes, so I do actually want to highlight that that's totally true, right? But I arguably I would say that possibly Lenovo is actually already on the right track years ago, right? Because actually as part of Lenovo's own drive of sustainability, right? We are actually patched through the community as well as actually all our ecosystem partners around the world that we would actually try to drive for net zero by 2050. And there's actually short-term goal as well as medium goal as well as long-term goal. And fair to say that a few years back, right, we were already the first PC and smartphone manufacturer around the whole world to actually have this net zero commitment. And we were the first one to actually push for science-based target initiative, which means that we were the first one to actually start collecting all the data. As you said, right? The collection of the data, as well as actually really making this first layer of information visible, is a daunting task. But the benefit is we already get an early start. After years of accumulation, right? Fair to say that as of today, we actually know very clearly what kind of carbon emission footprint that each of the Lenovo devices will create onto the world. So therefore, we have the foundation. We know where our starting point is. And of course, throughout the journey of our sustainability commitment, right? We definitely are actually also in every generation when we push for new devices, we already actually take it into consideration how we can actually already reduce the carbon footprint from a design point of view. Now, actually, the beauty of LISSA is that not only are we looking into how the production and the design can actually reduce carbon footprint, but actually branching into actually how it is being consumed and used. And so tying back to the Lenovo framework, right? So we start off with basically 3 goals to achieve our net zero. Scope 1 is actually talking about direct emission, which is really relating to more the production side of things. And then scope 2 is talking about indirect emission, but then still owned. So that's actually where our design of the solution, design of the products will come in. And now we're actually getting into scope 3 with LISSA, where we actually are advising our customer by leveraging some of the data that we have already collected to actually allow our customer to actually make the right choices. So I think that's actually how we started our journey. We do actually have some heritage that we can build on. So that actually get us a better starting point. Now, on top of that, right, just now when I actually talk about LISSA, I also actually shed a little bit light as on, okay, this is not only just about the product itself, but actually also about the logistics side of things, which is actually about packaging, about the choice of the fleet, about how we are actually picking the right kind of fuel to be used in terms of the flights even, right? And then there's actually a whole class of data points that we have actually been working with our ecosystem partners as well, our logistic partners as well. So therefore, they actually also provide us with the relevant information to actually put into the LISSA model. And now, last but not least, with particularly the mission of the Services and Solution Group of Lenovo, we are actually also driving the last bit, which is around services. And when I talk about services, I'm talking about around the life cycle support, right? So fair to say, right, if an equipment, right, its useful life is much shorter, then the impact onto the environment is typically larger, right? Because you still actually will have the kind of casing, the kind of electronics actually embedded in the product. So if the useful life is actually shorter, actually the impact to the environment is actually longer. So there are a few things that we are actually has been really actively supporting the customer for quite some time. But now we're just bringing the data side of the equation so to actually make it visible. Number one, arguably Lenovo's branded devices is the most durable, right? Repeated survey, repeated quality check actually demonstrated that it started off in our R&D lab where we actually are going through a lot of the durable tests. So that's actually already the starting point. Now, with the enhanced services on Premier Support Plus, as well as actually also asset recycling service, as well as actually also refurbished services, we are able to actually make it even more sensible and actually even longer useful life for our customer. So that's actually all the possible levers that we can drive. And as I shared, right, so it's really not just one day we get there, right? But it's years of accumulation of all the data points, all the methodologies, process-wise, as well as usage-wise, as well as service-wise, how we can actually come to today's stage of actually really launching LISSA to inform our customer accordingly.
The A in LISSA stands for advice. So is it
Yes.
only advising, or are there things, because we have the technologies which can act also if needed. So is
Yeah.
there a layer to that where it understands that, okay, something is not at an optimum level, it can be done right now. So does it intervene and fix things on its own also?
For the time being, I got to say that this is still more on the advisory side, right? We still actually would give the flexibility for our customer to actually pick and choose what is actually right for them, right? Because I think the hard thing is that there's no one size fits all, right? Kind of solution. We do actually want to actually provide the support, and so therefore our customer can be actually better informed. And actually, of course, it will be our great delight if they will be joining us in the journey and then actually also adopting the solutions to actually make the decision. But it's not compulsory.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to ask you is about a big part of any company's footprint is the workforce, right? And the
Hmm.
workforce is also becoming very complex, especially post COVID. It's not like everybody's in office still. People are, have hybrid, have work from home still, have work from office still. So how do you manage that? And I think that's where you can have a major intervention when it comes to sustainability, right?
Yes, that's right. I think there are a few things that we are actually still advising our customer in actually even bigger and greater scale of things as well. As you said, some of our customers have actually selected a much more distributed way of actually managing the fleet, right? But of course there will be actually sustainability impact or actually environment impacts that might be actually not as desirable, right? Because if we need to actually really support every employee in their own home and all that, right? Yes, we can do it, but there's actually also the kind of impact or downside. So that's where we actually are also advising customers to also adopt a hub and spoke kind of a setup rather than actually everything go into the individual homes, right? I think relatively speaking, right, of course, in the consumer segment, right, customers are actually adjusting and actually also more, how to say, getting used to the notion about this is me, this is my choice, and I want it to be actually at my door front, right? So we do actually support consumer segment a little bit more to the door kind of setup. But for enterprises, right, there's actually also some other contested priority, which actually plays well with the theme of sustainability. So in the notion of actually being cost effective, as well as actually also sensible, I think that's actually where we actually welcomed by a lot of the CIOs to actually we think about the distribution network, we think about the support mechanism, and actually also the service model, delivery model. There's definitely active trade-off, as I shared in the CIO survey, right? Many CIOs are actually also needing to actually make very difficult decisions every day to actually balance all the sorts of investment. But I feel that this is actually also what makes me feel very excited coming to work every day is that we do have a lot more people really consciously looking into this area. And actually, as the CIO survey that we did reviewed, right, 78% of the CIO do believe that with the right kind of tools, they can actually really meet their organization's IT sustainability goals in a much better way. And that's where we want to actually weigh in.
So, you have a lot of companies and CIOs who are fully aware of the need to work towards a sustainability goal. But you also have a lot of companies, maybe some of them are traditional companies, which really haven't opened up to the concept and are now thinking. So is there a evangelist role that you also play here, and you help companies, with their future purchases, future investments on how to be sustainable?
Yes, that's totally true. Because I think one of the key bits that, particularly for India, right? Because my team has actually been updating me with the landscape as well as what the Indian government is trying to
Yeah.
drive. Definitely, the Indian government is actually at the forefront to actually also push for the sustainability goals, right? So I would actually really say that our effort of actually driving for a much more sustainable environment tag along with the government push really well. And this is actually also where Lenovo is actually very honored and actually very excited to be actually part of the journey and playing our part, actually support the government, support the business in India to actually also drive it. So yes, definitely. I don't think that we can actually solve the biggest problem of humanity with a single drive. We definitely are actually very open to work with all sorts of ecosystem partners, government bodies as well, to actually make it a reality. And with that note, right, I think this is actually where I think there are two particular programs where we actually feel proud of and actually also hoping to actually contribute more. So number one is definitely actually around the India AI initiative, right? To actually really scout for some of the newer solutions, newer capability, newer startups that might be actually popping up in the Indian market, and see how we can actually adopt and incorporate some of these solutions into our broader portfolio and solution and go to market, so as to actually drive the journey together. Another one is definitely the sustainability goals, right? And so therefore, how we actually, as one of the driving force of the economy, but actually also provider of some of the core infrastructure and devices can actually play a part in that.
Before we end, one last question is that Lenovo has been a pioneer in the sustainability goal space, right? You have had a vision for a long time. And if you could just explain where is that vision right now and how are you working towards it?
Okay, sure. So Lenovo actually, as we actually talk about, right, we've been actually a pioneer in many of the facets of driving sustainability. We have actually adopted innovative technologies. We were the first one to actually push for sugarcane recycling packaging material, right? Nowadays, when people talk more and more, they realize, oh, it's not only just the cartoons, right? Packaging. It's actually even the packaging material can actually be made of more sustainable materials. We are the first one to actually talk about how we can actually, even the ThinkPad fleet of devices, right? Not only are we actually talking about materials that is actually much more durable, but increasingly you should have actually heard our team talking about how the casings actually now become using a lot and adopting a lot more recycled materials and all that. And now we're getting into the carbon emissions side of things, right? So we have carbon dioxide offset services that allow our customer to pick and choose. And now also LISSA, even an advisory tool to actually support our customer to actually pick and choose and actually really get on their journey as well. And with all this, right, this is not only unique for large company, right? Even small company buying maybe actually only 5 to 20 units of devices, they can enjoy that foundation that we have built and actually really opt into, for example, by our carbon dioxide offset offering. So therefore, they can actually also contribute back to the environment. Now, not only that, we now actually have 300 Lenovo products, right? And that actually do include materials that is actually from the recycled side, right? So not only on the packaging, not only on the casing, but even actually electronics and actually some of the inner components, right? That is actually in that black box is actually also getting into the recycle field. We are actually also having the industry-leading representation from a sustainability point of view. As I highlighted, it's not only about environment, but actually also equality, inclusions, and all that. So I'm very happy also that to share, actually in that journey, Lenovo is also arguably having the more women executive in our senior executive level, as well as board representation. So that is actually also another domain where we feel proud of. Last but not least, right, I think there are a few, I would say, milestones, which is actually also making ourselves proud, particularly for the India operation. We actually have local manufacturing in India. We will continue to actually also look into opportunities to actually include the made in India notion, so as to actually allow our production to be closer to the customer and therefore reducing the logistic arm of it, and actually also in return also helping the delivery of our services and solution in a much more sustainable way. We are actually also very proud to be actually saying that we actually are very active in participating in a lot of the NGOs activities to actually really help build a digital education side to actually support digital education and supporting some of the schools locally to actually adopt digital solution, right? So we are supporting VR Lab locally. We are actually also supporting some of the digitization of e-learning. So all these are actually really great things that possibly not really well known to everyone, but we are actually behind the scene and actually really supporting our partners, our ecosystem partners, as well as actually also the broader community.
So I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot about how technology is becoming sustainable and how technology is helping companies become sustainable. So it was a fascinating conversation. Thanks for being on the show, Fano.
Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to actually share, and thank you for the active listening from the audience. I do actually hope to actually have further opportunity to actually share more, and we'll keep on actually driving ourselves and then bring more innovation and actually also better products and solutions to the market.
So thanks for being on the show. You were listening to Our Own Devices. We'll be back again next week with another guest. Till then, we are available everywhere you listen to your podcasts.